Hey y'all, Mr. Williams here again. Coming up on, what are we at, week 4 of at-home instruction because of this COVID-19 virus. Today I actually snuck in the school. You can see behind me, it's pretty empty in here. There's not much going on here. Pretty empty. I'm wearing a hat too, don't tell anybody. I know it's not dress code, but this calls for extenuating circumstances, right? Speaking of talking about people and not telling anybody, this week's lesson is actually about propaganda. And as you can see coming up behind me, I've got a bunch of propaganda posters on the wall. That's kind of why I wanted to come into school, because I hung these up before spring break and before we left. So last week we talked about World War II and we went into detail on all that. A big part of World War II is what we call propaganda. And propaganda is basically where you're trying to get someone to support something or maybe not support something. So as far as World War II is concerned, America's standpoint anyway, they're going to want people to support the war, to buy war bonds. We talked about that in World War One. They're going to want them to save food, not eat so much, just to make sure that they have enough stuff to support the war. So if you look behind me, you can see some of these propaganda posters, and again, these are all from World War II era, and we're going to look at a few of them in detail here in just a second. But I mean, kind of get an idea. Here's one right here. You see that? It says, "I gave a man, will you give at least 10% of your pay in war bonds?" So they're just trying to convince people to maybe give some money to the war so the United States can help support its soldiers over there. Here's one. I kind of like that one. It says, "When you ride alone, you ride with Hitler. Join a car sharing club today." And so basically that's trying to get people to conserve gas. So they'll have more gas to send over. Or maybe it's getting them to conserve having to not have to replace their tires so much. They can send more of that rubber material over there to support the soldiers and stuff. Propaganda could definitely be bad as well. Hitler, we talked about the Holocaust. Hitler used propaganda to make people hate the Jews, and that ended up killing a lot of Jews. So propaganda can definitely be bad. And even in today's world, think about everything we're going through. Do you think we really would have ran out of toilet paper? Probably not. But somebody out there, probably multiple people, said, "Hey, we're going to run out of toilet paper, so we should all go buy it." Well, then the news reports it, and then everybody rushes to buy the toilet paper, and now we don't have any toilet paper, when really, if everybody would have just bought their normal share of toilet paper, we'd probably be okay. So propaganda could definitely be used negatively too. And even you guys in school, I mean, spreading rumors and stuff like that's in a way propaganda. If I knew of a teacher here, and let's say that I caught her picking her nose and eating her boogers or whatever, and maybe I made posters about this teacher doing that and hung them all over the school. That's propaganda that's causing people to not like someone or not support someone. So propaganda can definitely be negative, but the effects overall, positive and negative. You're gonna have both. If you're doing propaganda for good reasons, like some of these World War II posters, it could help us win the war basically, because we're sending stuff over and supporting the war. Whereas it could also have negative effects as far as people, or in the Holocaust situation, as far as groups of people. So let's look at a few of these examples of propaganda. We'll look at some examples of both good and bad, and then I'll talk to you about what I want you to do this week. So let's look at that real quick. Okay, so here's the dictionary definition of propaganda. And again, it's just like the spreading of ideas or rumors. I'm sure you guys in middle school can relate to that. For the purpose of helping a situation, or for the purpose of injuring a situation or an institution, a cause. Again, a cause would be the war. A person would be, a person, duh. And an institution would be a place. Or ideas, facts, or allegations. Basically means you're accusing or you're suggesting something to spread news, either to hurt something or to help it. So again, it could be either way. Here's some World War II propaganda posters. So he volunteered for submarine service. And so basically, if you're a young man living in this time era, you would see that and like, oh well, he did it, I could do it. I want the pretty girls, so I should join the submarine service. So these propaganda posters were designed to try and urge you to support the war, whether it be by joining the war or rationing certain things. They've got the guts, back them up with more metal. So this is basically trying to get you to conserve metal. not use so much metal, basically. That way you have more to send over there. They've got the guts to be over there. We need to support them by supplying them with guns and metals and machinery and things like that. Defend your country. Enlist now in the United States Army. And again, this just shows you like America's is just strong man and kind of a funny looking jumpsuit there, but this strong man and the eagle behind him, and we're proud to be Americans, so we should enlist in the army to help protect our country. Keep them flying. Buy war bonds. And we talked about bonds before when we were discussing World War One. A bond is where like maybe you buy something and then you can cash it in later and maybe gain some interest on it, so you can make a little money. But by buying it, you're giving the government money now, and so it's helping them to support the war. In this situation, it's wanting you to buy war bonds so we can support our military that's having to fly in planes. We want to keep them up there. We want to keep them flying. We want to keep them supported. So we should buy war bonds to help ensure that. Here's one that says Americans will always fight for liberty, and I like this one. From 1778, the founding fathers fighting against Great Britain, to 1943 when we're fighting the Nazis and the Axis powers, Japan included. So I think this one's really cool. I like this one a lot. So again, this is just kind of pulling at your, we're proud to be Americans, and we should uh, support or join and fight the war. And I showed you this one on the wall just a second ago. When you ride alone, you ride with Hitler. Join a car sharing club today. Everybody hated Hitler in America at this point. He was the enemy, so you didn't want to be thought of as riding with Hitler. When you've got these extra seats in your car, you could get people in there, and then now you're saving gas. So you have more gas to send over to our military troops to support the war. Is he your child? You don't want this. Buy war bonds before it's too late. Kind of what this one is saying is, well, if we lose the war, we'll all be Nazis, and you don't want your child to be a Hitler, to be a Nazi. So buy war bonds before it's too late and we lose the war. So we need to support our soldiers so we can win this war. Wanted for murder. Her careless talk cost lives. And what you have here is you have what looks like an ordinary woman, but she's wanted for murder because maybe she was out talking about where her husband was, or talking about maybe her husband's fighting, and she's talking about where he was and what he's saying about the war. Well, maybe there's a spy next to her, and the spy overhears her talking, and then that spy again can take that information and give it to the enemies, the Axis powers, and then that's going to hurt our cause. So careless talk can cost lives. Don't be spreading rumor. Be careful what you say and who you're around when you say it. Daddy, what did you do in the Great War? And so remember, the Great War was World War One. That's what it was referred to at the time until World War Two came along. And so this one's kind of open to interpretation. Kind of looks like she's learning about the war and she's asking her, "What did you do in the Great War?" And so maybe a young man's watching this and he's thinking, "Well, maybe someday my child's going to ask me, what did I do in World War Two? So I should do something so I'll have something to tell them." I want you for the U.S. Army, nearest recruiting station. This is probably one of the most famous propaganda posters in the United States, in the United States history. I mean, this is just saying, our government wants you. They trust you and they need you to support our country and to defend our country. This is another extremely popular one. We can do it. With all the men away fighting, just like in World War One, the women are going to enter the workforce in monumental numbers. And this is just showing that women are strong. They can handle the work while the men are away. We got this. We can do it. So good versus evil, is propaganda always good? No, and we've discussed that. Can it be bad? Absolutely. What's an example of good use of propaganda and bad use? And that's one of your assignments that you'll do here in a little bit. Give me an example of each. And we've talked about it. It can be good, it can be great, it can help you to support causes like the war, or it can hurt people. The Holocaust, Hitler used propaganda to kill the Jews, so it could definitely be bad as well. Here's some examples of some bad ones. My favorite actress uses this brand. It must be good. I must try it too. So this is like a testimonial propaganda, and it uses famous personalities to recommend a product to the target audience. Maybe the product's bad, but just because someone famous is using it, I mean, you see this on commercials all the time. Some famous person is modeling a product or something, and it makes you want to buy it because you like that famous person. Doesn't necessarily mean that the product is good though. So you have to be very careful in those situations. Nicotine cigarettes, the smooth taste expected mothers crave. Well, maybe at the time this was thought as a good idea, but come on, cigarettes aren't good in any cases, especially for someone who's pregnant. We know that today. Of course, this is an older propaganda poster, so back then they didn't know any better. But cigarette companies are a prime example. Tobacco companies are a prime example of companies that are going to use propaganda to try and get you to buy their product. Here lately, you've got the Juuls going on. They're selling these candy flavored to kind of target the younger generations, and they're doing that. That way, you'll get hooked on it, and then when you're older, you'll still be smoking. Because think about it, most of the people that smoke today are older because they started when they were young and they got hooked. And so that's what these tobacco companies are trying to do today. They're using propaganda to try and hook you on their product and make sure that you stay hooked. Butter, good and good for you. Your nutritional tip: butter is slippery. That's why we eat as much as possible to lubricate our arteries and veins. Again, this is an older propaganda poster, and at the time they probably didn't know any better, but we all know that butter is not good for your arteries and veins. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It'll give you a straight up heart attack. Um, but again, false advertisement, propaganda, they can definitely go hand in hand to create bad propaganda. They're happy because they eat lard, and lard's, kind of like butter. Again, not the healthiest thing, but it shows this really fit family. They look really healthy, and this propaganda poster is saying it's because they eat lard. And again, this is an older one. They probably didn't know any better. Today we know better. But it just kind of shows you that sometimes we jump the gun on propaganda and we don't do our research. Like the pregnant woman when the smoking. We know today that that's bad. So sometimes what we think is good propaganda years later turns out to be pretty bad. Try penicillin, made from mold. You can get this drug from your doctor or prepare it yourself. Again, this is older. Maybe they didn't know any better at the time. This is another example of how years later we're looking at this and like, not a good idea to eat molded bread. Okay, your assignments. You got 2, and these are kind of project based, so maybe have a little fun with these. I want you to actually create a propaganda poster for World War II. So think of everything we talked about last week with World War II, the Holocaust, America getting involved, Japan attacking Pearl Harbor, anything like that, and create a propaganda poster for that. We just saw a bunch of examples. I don't want you to copy those examples. Kind of come up with your own and create it. And again, you're not making a poster about facts of World War II. You're creating basically a commercial or an advertisement to convince people to do something in support of the war, buy war bonds, join the army, save metal, whatever. You're trying to get them to support the war in one way or another. Again, not making a poster of facts about World War II. You're making a poster. You're basically making a commercial in poster form. Okay, then I want you to create another propaganda poster. This time, I want you to create one that we could see in the newspaper today, or hanging at the post office today, or maybe on Facebook today as a gift or something. Create a propaganda poster that would be relevant in today's world. So I gave you an example of kind of a bad one, the toilet paper crisis. I mean, somebody out there started this propaganda that we were going to run out of toilet paper. So everybody started buying up the toilet paper. True. What do we right now? No. But everybody bought it out, and so we couldn't keep up with the demand, so the supply lacked, and so now here we are having a hard time to find toilet paper when we shouldn't have ever had that situation arise, but it was because of bad propaganda that did happen. So I want you to create a propaganda poster that would be relevant in today's world. And you could do on this one, you could do good or bad. On the World War II, I want you to do something in support of the war, why we should support the war. I don't want anything bad. Like I don't want a Hitler propaganda poster about killing of the Jews or anything like that. I want it to be good supporting of the war in World War II. On today's, I'll let you go either way. You could maybe make a goofy one about, oh, we're gonna run out of toilet paper, you should hurry up and buy it, or something like that. I would prefer you use something different. I use that example already. But anyway, you can use good or bad on today's. So maybe you could do a good one telling people to stay at home or to wash their hands. That way we can stop the spread of this COVID-19 virus that's going around now. So either way, good or bad on this new one. But you got 2 propaganda posters to make. And you can make those digitally if you have a way to do that on your computer, or you can just use construction paper. And if you're not hand turning the stuff in the packets, you can just take a picture of it and email it to me. That would be totally fine. So that's what we got this week. Again, that's propaganda. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm going to have office hours now, so I will be actually online where you can talk to me, or if you just want to hang out, if you have questions or just want to hang out or something like that, I will be on Zoom Tuesdays, 3 to 3:30, and Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m. So anyway, if you have questions, you can log in, ask me those questions, or if you just want to see me and maybe some people in your classmate and hang out and just say hi and bye real quick, that is totally fine too. But anyway, y'all stay safe and let me know if you need anything at all. See you guys later.